What were some of your major concerns before bringing your son in?
Well, for Hudson, he was diagnosed with motor and speech apraxia at 2.5. He has since additionally added the educational diagnosis of somewhere on the autism spectrum. So our big concerns for him really were his frustration level was extremely high, and there was a lot of screaming and yelling and when he would express those sorts of things, when he would encounter a new activity or something that was particularly challenging, which and most everything was challenging for him, writing or coloring or running on the playground, things that are just a regular, typically developing kid doesn't encounter. Those things were all a struggle for Hudson. Going up steps and running and lifting, everything that we just take for granted and is a regular, normal, easy thing for all of us to do is a challenge for him, and usually resulted in a lot of frustration on his part, a lot of screaming, a lot of screaming.
And he's taken speech and occupational therapy for the past few years. And we have seen some improvement, but not the kind of improvement we wanted where he could interact with other kids in the class and had comparable coordination and had the confidence to throw himself into an activity. So we were looking for something else to help him out.
What was different about Connections than other therapy programs that you've tried, such as the speech language?
Well, we went to a camp fair and there was a booth, the Connections booth, and the first thing that struck us was that it was a comprehensive approach that looked at, diet, inputs into the system, the physical aspects, and then the chiropractic piece of it. So it was really a total thing where before we just gotten the occupational and speech therapy was the only thing. And just looking at the plasticity of the brain, that really interested us, and it seemed like the research on that was promising.
Yeah, I think speech and OT have been great, and they were, but they were more of a how to deal with what was going on with him, as opposed to how to change the difficulties he's having. So that really attracted us. That this wasn't just here's some coping mechanisms to help him get through life. It was let's change the brain. Let's make some new connections, and it wasn't just come into our office for an hour or 2 or 3 a week and we'll do these therapies and then you go home. It was this very life approach, with the diet being a huge component, I think, and additional therapies we do at home. So that attracted us, that it wasn't just here your son has these issues and he's going to have them, and he still does have his issues and he will, but it wasn't just these are the cards Hudson's dealt, and let's try and do this so he can have as regular a normal life as possible. It was, well, yes, these are the cards Hudson was dealt, but we can change the brain, we can make new connections, and we can more of a recovery process, I guess, to use a different word than just a coping mechanism. So that really appealed to us.
Yeah, our pediatrician really didn't have much to offer besides the speech and occupational therapy. There's really, that was about it that he could say could help, and we're looking for something more.
Yeah, and just I think the next step, if we had gone in a traditional medical approach, would have been, well, medication to handle his frustration level or handle his outbursts and those sorts of things, and that really wasn't the answer we were looking for either. So we don't want to just dull his problem. We want to alleviate the issues that he has and make it different
That's
for
great.
him.
That's great. Since he's been in the program, what changes have you seen?
A lot, and it's really hard to quantify those changes as far as just what we see, but I think the quality of his life is just so much better, and thus the quality of our family life and everyone who encounters him. His frustration level is so much lower. Where it would have been a lot of screaming and outbursts before, now he's able to communicate and express himself in a way that's more complex than it was prior. for example, things that would have caused an instant meltdown for him earlier. The first change that I really noticed was he was trying to wash his hands one day and he couldn't reach the faucet, and typically he was starting to get fussy. He was starting to get frustrated because he just couldn't reach what he wanted to reach, and his sister was egging him on a little bit, and then typically what would have happened was an explosion of by Hudson, but instead what he did was he very calmly said, I can't reach it. And that seems like such a small thing, but if anyone's around someone who typically reacts with an outburst, for him to calmly communicate, I can't reach it, was just huge for us, just huge. So there are things like that. He runs towards things. Not every little kid runs towards things, but now he sees something and he'll run to it. That wasn't something he could do before.
And he's been interacting socially he's always been able to interact with adults, but now he's able to interact with kids his age and older, and that's been a big change that we've noticed in him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he plays. He just he's having a typical, he just has more typical experiences than just sitting next to us and being afraid to try things all the time and being frustrated.
What would you say to another parent who is considering bringing their child to Connections?
I'd say, well, it's worked for us. I would just say, come in and at least listen to the initial briefing that you're given, but it's definitely been a benefit to our son, and I'd recommend trying it if it seems like once you get all the information that it addresses your child's needs.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say, just in general, or?
I'd say, what does make this different is though that unlike I don't know if I want to say more traditional approaches to this sort of thing, but it is an all-encompassing program as far as the diet component and the things we do at home with him, and just the commitment of sticking with it and coming out here. So that is something that I think people really need to be prepared for, but the benefits are worth it. He's so pleasant to be around, and he was pleasant before, but it's difficult to nobody, when someone screams all the time and yells all the time, it was a cloud that hung over our family wherever we went, and that cloud is gone. So that alone has been worth it for him and for us and for anyone who he encounters. It's just made a big difference.
Yeah, great.